Sarah, again, I know this is day 2 instead of week 2. However, I had mentioned yesterday that I was doing the Primal Diet. I started reading the book today. I got a more comprehensive understanding of the concept behind this diet. So for anyone who is interested and perhaps too lazy to do their own research, I've gathered kind of a list of the fundamental ideas behind the diet itself. This is the book, the Primal Blueprint, describing the reasons that this diet should work, backed by a lot of scientific evidence based on human evolution alone. So the biggest concept I got out of this was glucose, sugar. You can find this in wheat, flour, pasta, crackers, rice, any baked goods, obviously sweets, candies, pop, the list goes on. But these have never really been a fundamental part of the human diet, even though, we've grown up with many generations in agriculture where these things have been supported as a staple. I think that's quite the contrary. Plants and animals have always been optimal, fundamental, and part of our basic primal needs for millions of years. It's widely recognized that about 10,000 years ago or so is when humans peaked in evolution, and plants and animals have always been the caloric emphasis. Well, as we evolved and we learned agriculture, I'm under the belief, and some scientists, perhaps many scientists, are under the belief that humans are perhaps going through a process of devolution through our sedentary states, sitting in front of the computer like I'm doing, no longer hunting or gathering, and complete, typically, in first world countries, an overabundance of food. We no longer have to work for our food, and we're no longer rationed our food. We can get whatever we want, whenever we want. So I've also learned that a lot of people are like, I have diabetes, and I got cancer, and I have heart disease, all these things because it runs in my family. So I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that that it works out for the best. And typically people treat these problems through pharmaceuticals when really it's not addressing the underlying problems. I think it's common sense that even though you have a disposition to anything, that you can break away simply by making conscious decisions as far as activity and health goes. It is widely understood that genes interact with your surroundings to create a unique individual. That is the process of evolution. I don't think it's fair to blame genetics then on, typical obesity or diseases or whatnot. So back to glucose, grains, the glucose is essentially sugars. It prevents proper fats and proteins to getting to very important parts of the body, and muscles, livers, pancreas, other organs. People are also under the impression that chronic exercise, 30 minutes of intense cardio at least 3 times a week, that's the best way to do it. But through my personal experience, I know this can cause stress, injury, illness, and it's absolutely misaligned with our primal requirements, which we have not evolved out of by any means. Millions of years doing what we've been doing, and then after 10,000 years, people are like, nope, you can just sit there and eat bread. So I'd mentioned that I wanted to bike. I'm going to trade my bike in for walking. Apparently low-level aerobics, just like our ancestors did, hunting, gathering, wandering, climbing, you get the idea. It builds a strong capillary network for optimal oxygen and fuel to reach each and every cell. Not only that, but when you do the consistent low-level walking, whatnot, playing, it builds strong bones, joints, connective tissue, whatnot. So the last thing I want to mention about the primal diet, before I get into actually like the food that I'm going to eat, is that a lot of people eat based on a structured 3 meals a day plan, and this diet insists that you eat based on your body's needs. It's tough for some people to want to eat breakfast, though. Don't stop eating breakfast. That's something you need to break away from. I think breakfast is essential, but eat as you're hungry. Eat as your body requires it. Eat whole foods. Eat organic foods. Don't eat anything processed. Often processing foods completely removes the nutritional value and leaves you hungry for just the weirdest things that don't quite sate it, or maybe sate it instantaneously, like with a boost in your insulin. And my understanding is that's terrible. So that is essentially my understanding of it. Now, cutting out grains is obviously the number one thing I talked about, and sugars. That leaves plants and animals as raw as possible. Many vegetables, high nutrition avocados, kale, cabbage, and meat. I have the cookbook. They want you to bake your bacon, save your bacon fat, and cook with that, because those fats help break down and transport things into the body. Roasted leg of lamb with herbs and garlic. We can get back into here a little further with cream of broccoli soup. There's something more complicated. Summer squash noodles. You can actually replace spaghetti noodles with squash simply by taking it and kind of shaving it down with a fork. Let's see here. Almond crusted poached eggs. Jambalaya. This cookbook is just fantastic, and the great thing about it is it seems to be very easy. The ingredients are minimal, again, because you want to eat as whole as possible, and typically rely on spices for anything. Then before I end this video update, I know it's been kind of long, but I'll post a bunch of links. I want to share with you. I'm cutting out caffeine, and I feel great. I feel fantastic. I'm replacing it with yerba mate. It's a type of coffee that does have a small amount of caffeine in it, but my understanding is, again, that it has a lot of other aspects to it that help you kind of stay more awake systemically, rather than having the caffeine just go into your stomach and do all kinds of fucked up things to you. And then if you are a solid coffee drinker, there's this replacement that my roommate introduced me to, is a dandy blend. People actually used to drink this. It's made out of dandelion root with chicory root. It's very, very similar to taste in coffee if you can't shake away from the taste. It's rather expensive, but it adds up to about $1 a serving, which is much cheaper than getting coffee. And see here, look at that, gluten-free. And then supplements. I'm also taking supplements. This is something I started taking for a few weeks. This is for females, female complex. It's herbal. It's got dong quai root, which is essentially the female version of ginseng, red raspberry leaf, which I use for having particularly tough menstrual days, black cohosh root, and chastity berry. I'm kind of a skeptic for most things, but I feel like I've kind of leveled out hormonally. I'm taking L-arginine 2 a day. Promotes healthy heart and immune system. It essentially, my understanding, again, I keep saying my understanding, is that it helps break down the essential fats and whatnot that are needed for your muscles and digest easily. Right by nature, multivitamin. Everyone should be taking these regardless. Adrenal support tonic. And for the ladies, yet again, female libido tonic. I like it. It helps. As far as that goes, I've been using the supplements for long enough to know, over a year now, that they really do work, and they might be slightly expensive, but it's incredible, the supplements. And then even water. I mean, I chugged a crap load of water today, and biking home was just absolutely effortless. It was incredible. It felt great. And if anything, whoever's watching this, I really encourage you to at least increase your water intake, because it's I mean, even just one in a day, it's so amazing how much better you feel. So look below. I'm going to compile then a list of links to describe the Primal Blueprint a little bit more, maybe something to where you can purchase the book itself, and perhaps kind of like a tell-all list of general herbal supplements that people use for you to make your own decision and whatnot. Thanks for sticking around. This is day 2 and I feel amazing, and I'll try not to update for another week. All right, take care. Who says take care? That was weird. I'm not on the phone. All right, bye.